So Mike, in your presentation, you spoke about 7 key lessons for today's operator.
Yeah, 7 key lessons which really are common across companies, but are particular for the shipping world. Those 7 are essentially you need to have strong leadership at the top, because if you have leadership at the top, it will cascade through the rest of the business. Supporting that is the second lesson, which is all about governance, making sure that you've identified the key roles and responsibilities and that you allocate people to be accountable for delivering against the board's direction. The third area is it's such a big canvas, particularly in the maritime world where you're talking about IT and OT systems. We've got to identify what is critical to the business. Not critical to the IT department, critical to the business. So understanding the business impact should systems go down and helping people do that. And once you've done that critical systems analysis, you can then really have the evidence to do the fourth one, which is all about risk management. With robust risk management, you can make smarter decisions rather than I'm just going to fix this because there's a vulnerability. I'm going to address this control because there's a threat and a vulnerability. So risk management is important. The fifth area is all about resilience. I'm moving away really from security, which is how do I protect my perimeter, more to I'm going to provide as many protections as I can, but I've got to assume that I will have a cyber incident. Can I recover from that cyber incident? Do I have the resilience in order to get the business up and running as quickly as possible? And there's 2 things that support the final 2 success factors. One is good monitoring both of the IT systems and the OT systems and the database. And finally, you've got to really check that if you do have an incident, can I respond? So if you've not had a particular incident, practice it so that should you, God forbid, have one, you can respond in an effective manner.
Now, your 7 lessons resonated with the audience, but actually a number made the case that there's an 8th for awareness.
There is the 8th one, and I was caught out by that particular one. But I would argue that cybersecurity awareness is critical. But in order to do that, you need to do the first 7. Because for example, my recent client, one of the issues was an acceptable use policy, making sure that the average user knew what to do. And one of the problems was that the average user had a business process which the business didn't understand. So the business process was picking up files and presentations from outside of the network and bringing that into it. So you're bringing in potentially contaminated and disruptive technology into your system. They needed that for a business process, but they didn't understand the risk. So security awareness is critical, but it should be built on those other 7. So you're right, there are actually 8.
Now, we're talking at a high level, and it sounds very, very impressive, but the point was made from the floor that people are not awash with cash. So in this area, where does the hype end and the value begin?
That begins really with an understanding of your business, because the only reason you're going to spend money on this is you want to reduce the risk. And risk means both understanding the vulnerability, but also the likelihood of this particular event happening. So all these vulnerabilities exist. All these IT and OT systems have problems, but not all of them are going to be targeted. And therefore, when it comes to a time when money is tight, you need to make risk-based decisions. And when you carry out robust risk-based decisions, then you will spend your money wisely.
How have attitudes towards cyber risk changed over the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, the key point here is to ensure that you understand both the threat and the vulnerability. We're moving more towards a threat-led cybersecurity posture. What this means is all those vulnerabilities exist, but the intent of a threat actor does change. You could be operating in different parts of the world. For example, if you're operating near a war zone, you're more likely to get GPS spoofed. You're more likely to be targeted because you may be influencing one side or the other in a particular conflict. So that intent has changed in that particular area, whereas if you happen to operate in a benign area, that intent doesn't exist. So moving to a threat-led cybersecurity posture is the biggest change in managing cyber risk of the last 5 years.
And finally, Mike, we're talking at the end of the first session here at our conference. What are your early impressions?
My early impressions are that it was good to start with a national perspective. And so we heard from the Secretary of the Sea in the French government about how important it is to share insight. And one of the questions from the floor was really about how we compare the maritime sector to the aviation sector. In the aviation sector, safety is paramount, probably because there's more humans being carried than goods, and therefore the sharing of incidents is much more of a second nature in the aviation sector. We need to move that within the maritime sector, so it's good to be challenged that at the very beginning. And then we finished with how insurance might support you in making some of these decisions. And the important initiative by the Norwegian Hull Club to come back with the 380 buyback, which basically means if you conduct the sort of 5 key steps, and they listed those key steps, then you could demonstrate that the Clause 380 won't inhibit your cyber risk insurance.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.